fans, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. As I continue my kind of marathon of more extreme horror, more extreme films. And for this one, we're going back to Japan. I've done a few from Japan so far. And I wouldn't go so far as to say this is an extreme film. It was certainly a controversial one. It's definitely one that is a lot bloodier than a lot of other films. It is an independent film. But it's also one that I think people might be hesitant to call a horror film. I know a lot of people call it a drama. They just call it a thriller or a mystery. Yes, it does have all those elements, but it's also a horror film. It's an independent horror film. Yes, it is might be more about story, mystery, themes, messages, and interpretations, but also with geysers and buckets of blood along the way. And yes, this is from a now controversial filmmaker, Sion Sono, if I pronounce that correctly. Yes, there have been allegations in the last couple of years of sexual assault. As I've said in other videos with directors that have been known for stuff like that, not here to talk about the director or anything like that, just talk about the film and the film itself. So, any comments dealing with the director, I don't know. We're not here to talk about his crimes or whether we should still watch his films or not, just the movie itself. And this is from 2001, and it is Suicide Club, or as it was released in Japan as Suicide Circle. So yeah, it was written and directed by Sion Sono, and it stars Ryu Ishibashi, who is probably my favorite Japanese actor. He was the lead in Audition. He was also in the American version of The Grudge. Every time I see him, he just has this great presence, either as like a detective or father, husband, lead. Also, Masatoshi Nagase, Yoko Kaman, Kimiko Yo, Hideo Sako, and Raleigh as a Genesis. I don't know if Raleigh is a singer or what, but probably he sings in this. And it won a lot of prizes. It was very controversial at film festivals upon its release. And I think this film is most known for the opening scene, which prior to seeing this, I had only seen like the opening clip, which with the 54 schoolgirls going to the subway station, jumping in front of the train, and just like a mist of blood everywhere. Yes, when we see them get run over, there is CGI, but everything else is practical. And yeah, it is just like all over the windows. We see from the inside of the train, all over the front of it, all over the newspaper stand. Just it's almost just like just tons of blood. So we get 54 deaths in the opening scene. It is basically just this group of detectives finding out that there might be a connection between this plague of suicides that's sweeping Japan. And that they're all probably connected in something called the Suicide Club. There's either someone or something influencing people to do themselves in, especially young people. Also, there's this recurring theme about like a young J-pop girl band called a Dessert, which there is something kind of funky with the subtitles on this release because it's Dessart, but when we see posters and them on TV, it's spelled out a dessert, like food. So, and all their songs just reminded me of like Let It Go. Their songs aren't that great, but the actual score done by Hasegawa Tomoki is fantastic. It's very melancholic. I really like the themes of this movie, and it, it does get very bizarre. You just when you think you haven't figured out where the story's going, or what you think the outcome is, it just pulls it out from under you and gets super weird. Now I know Sion Sono is known for kind of bizarre / controversial films. One that is on my list to get is the film Strange Circus, but a number of his films sound super interesting that I would like to check out. There's X Day, Hamitsu, Strange Circus. There is a prequel to this called Nikono's Dinner Table, which I'll check out. There's a film called Anti-Porno. Almost every film I read about sounds very interesting, so I'll have to check those out. And the thing about this movie is, well, one, I love how it's shot. The cinematography was done by Kazuto Sato, and it does have this very subdued, a minimalistic quality to it. I mean, when we're inside and there's conversations, the camera is very still. But like when we're outside, like just seeing crowds of foot traffic or just establishing shots, it gets kind of shaky like a handheld. It has a very raw and intimate feel to it with the way it's shot. Very low budget and independent. I was trying to think of something to compare it to, just as, kind of like Kids. It's not shot on video, but it definitely looks low budget and independent and raw. I love how it's shot. And the thing about it is, when you get to the ending of the film, it does leave it open to interpretation as far as, okay, why was this happening? Is there someone pulling the strings, or is it just because? But the themes and messages that he's definitely trying to get across is, one, cult-like behavior and ideation. He has said that he was part of the pseudo-Christian cult at one point in his life, and I guess that influenced a number of his films. Also, he has gone on to say that this is a hate film, sort of like an FU to Japan. Like, he wants Japanese to hate this film. And according to him, they do. But I don't know. But other themes it tackles is longing for a human connection, being part of something that's bigger than yourself, the impressionable nature of children and young people, and also just pop culture of idolization and just sort of the suicide plague that's hit Japan for so many years. It tackles all those, and that's very obvious. But then when you get to the end of the film, you're just like, well, so why is it that way? And I guess it can be looked at as kind of like suicide itself. You can't necessarily pinpoint a direct certain cause or reason. So it's very well written in that regard. When I say the themes are obvious, it's not pelting you over the head like a lot of films do, but it is very blatant. So it is kind of a slow burn. It does start with these detectives slowly kind of figuring out that there's a connection. There's also a subplot with this computer hacker that calls herself the Bat. That's kind of helping the detectives along through this chat room or this website. There's this other website that I'm sure people will say it's kind of like rotten.com. No, because it's just a bunch of dots. All these white dots that turn red to signify the body count of suicides. Also, there's this white sports bag that shows up at each crime scene or each suicide scene, where inside is just like this spool, this roll of just human skin that's like 10 centimeters by, like 4 or 5, just like this long roll, like the fruit by the foot of human skin. Which I think that is supposed to signify the human connection. Each slice is from a different person and they're all connected. So I think that's kind of the symbolism for human connection. There is also this question that's posed several times, like, are you connected to yourself? Your boyfriend, your son, your daughter, your mother, someone has died, committed suicide. If you die, if you commit suicide, your connection to them remains the same, but are you connected to yourself? So that's something that comes up a lot. So I do think that whole stitch together is supposed to represent human connection. Also, there's just the whole idea of being part of something that's a bigger than yourself goes along with the just impressionable nature of children. Because the second suicide scene we see is at a high school where they have recess on a roof, which sounds really safe, where all these kids are talking about, like, yeah, let's all commit suicide. You ready? Let's join the suicide club. Because it's hitting the news and it's all over the place. And a lot of them do. But we don't see the impact. We're inside a classroom and we just see outside the window just a whoosh, and then blood all over the windows. Some of them we don't even see. Like, they'll fall and we'll just cut to someone else that's standing there. Or they'll jump and at the impact we'll just cut to black. Which, implied violence can be just as effective as on-screen violence if it's done well. I think this movie did it very well. There's also a scene, well, a montage, pretty much at the peak of this plague, where we have a woman sticking her head in an oven. We get this guy at some, like, open mic comedy stabbing himself. There's a mother who's cutting food with this big smile on her face as she just starts cutting through her hand nonstop. Blood going everywhere. I mean, when there's blood, there's a lot of it. It is this very bright red, vibrant blood that I think always looks cool. Yeah, it's not going for realistic blood and violence. It is over the top, and I think it's supposed to. I am going to get into spoilers here, but I can recommend this. I mean, only because I think it's very well made. Just kind of, judge the film by itself. Don't worry about the director or anything or his allegations or whatever. Just, go into it just thinking about the film itself. And it is very well made. It's very well acted. The music is great aside from the girl band stuff. Just when you think, you're like, okay, I bet the whole thing for it is this. It's all leading up to that. It always takes a very bizarre turn just at the moment where you think you have it figured out. And to me, that's good writing. The writing is good. It's got plenty of blood, quite the body count. And yes, I think the blood is more... If he did make this with an in-your-face, hateful attitude, I think the blood is just the icing on that cake, just an extra, just kind of, push it in your face even more. But it works, so... Yes, the ending is very confusing. It is very cryptic. I think that's where the interpretation is able to come in. But its themes and messages are undeniable and obvious. So, yes, I can recommend it. That is Suicide Club. So, spoilers. the whole thing with the girl band, because right after the uh, opening 54 student suicide, we get like a music video of that dessert band, and it closes with the band as well. And we hear their songs throughout the movie. I mean, there's people watching them on TV or listening to them on the radio. Uh, all their songs kind of, the lyrics were in the subtitles. So the first song had lyrics kind of like just hurry up and do it. There was one called Life is a Jigsaw Puzzle, and, you know, just gotta find where you fit. Just something that could be interpreted as suicide. And I was wondering, like, is it all just subliminal messages? Does that something to do with media and the impressionable nature, that it's subliminal messages? Just when I figured that out, that hacker and her friend gets abducted, and we get a really bizarre scene with this guy Genesis, who's like this David Bowie kind of wannabe with like season 5 Jeremiah Valeska from Gotham, who he's got his sort of J-pop punk cronies at this abandoned bowling alley, where they just have other people tied up in sheets, animals tied up in sheets, and he just stomps on the animals, kills them, has the women raped in front of him as he sings. And he claims to be, the head of the Suicide Club. He's the one that is pulling the strings and telling everyone to kill themselves via internet. Even has her, communicate with the police to tell them where she is so that he can be arrested. And it's all for grandeur. He's not part of it. I was kind of thinking, like, there's no way this guy is the mastermind of this, and he's not. He even calls himself the Charlie Manson of the information age. He did it all for grandeur. There, the turning point for me where I thought, okay, this movie's gonna be no holds barred, anything goes, no one is safe, is when the lead, the one from Audition, who's our lead, a detective, comes home and his entire family's committed suicide. This is after the montage. And he, of course, is in grief. He gets a phone call, because there's these phone calls from a young boy who keeps clearing his throat, who seems to really know what's going on. Earlier, he tells him there's going to be another mass suicide at the subway station. They stake it out, nothing happens. So then when his family does, the boy calls again, poses that, are you connected to your son? Are you connected to your daughter? Are you connected to yourself? The connections remain the same, but are you connected to yourself? And he shoots himself. And it goes into this very grainy, almost 70s exploitation look, slow motion, just looked great, very well shot. But I was just like, okay, no one in this movie is safe. That was kind of the point where I thought anything can happen. So then after Genesis is arrested, well, because then I kept thinking, like, are they going to go supernatural? Because they're looking at these strips of skin. One has a tattoo. And then her... Oh, I lied. That's not the bat. This is someone else. Her boyfriend commits suicide. And so they're questioning her. They want to know if she has, like, skin missing, but we see that she has a tattoo. We just saw a tattoo piece. So is there, like, give me some doppelganger, supernatural shit going on? No. And then I was thinking, like, oh, it's got to be subliminal messages or something like that. Then this Genesis guy comes in. And when this girl goes to her deceased boyfriend's house, notices his room is just decked out in this dessert band stuff. And she notices this poster where all the girls are standing there, or some are doing like things with their fingers, like 1, 2, or 3. So she types it on the phone, and just like the 3, 1, 2, whatever, spells out suicide. So she calls that phone number, and it's the young boy's voice. He says there's no suicide club, and I'm thinking, like, is a kid doing all this? I would have thought maybe the record label or the manager, maybe the girls themselves was behind it. So I was like, okay, this young kid tells her about this secret concert that this band's putting on. She goes to it. I'm thinking, is she gonna kill this girl band in front of everybody? No. She goes to look for them on the stage, and then she turns around, and there's all these kids in the audience. They all pose the connection questions. And she says, I am connected to myself. They all cheer. And then we're in this other bizarre setting, kind of like a shipping container, where there's a shirtless guy with a sander, like a hand sander, saying it's ready. Then we have all these girls kneeling down, face against the wall. They rip their shirts off, sand off, a strip of skin. She's one of them. There was another suicide. The lead's partner finds another sports bag, suggesting it's not over. One of them is this girl's butterfly. And so he goes down to the train station, sees all these girls in school uniforms, tries to stop her, but she gets on the train. They don't commit suicide. And then it ends with the music video of the band's farewell song called Live As You Please. So really, it ends without them really solving anything. The law enforcement is at the exact same place at the end as they were at the beginning, which could say there really is no connection. There is no master of suicidal puppets or anything. It's just something that's happening. But then, of course, the roles of skin would go against that. So the ending is a bit confusing. It is very cryptic, but I definitely see all its messages of longing for human connection, being part of something bigger than yourself. How kids or people in general can be impressionable. The ideation of grandeur, and kind of just taking a stab at Japanese pop culture itself. And I thought this movie was very good. As far as Japanese horror films go, I would definitely put it up there with Audition. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Wonderfully acted. I really liked everything about this movie. I would say the ending was a bit too cryptic. I'm fine with ambiguity. If they wanted to leave it ambiguous, but maybe less cryptic, if that makes sense. But also, I didn't really care for the pop songs, like the girl band songs. But the actual score was very well done. So yeah, I do want to check out more films by this director, especially Nikoto's Dinner Table, the prequel to this, just to see what that's all about. For some reason, I thought that the opening train scene was the only gore scene, and the rest was just this big mystery. So I was surprised by all the death scenes, all the suicides, the amount of blood that's actually in it. It has a fair amount. I mean, if you're going to go into this for blood and gore, I mean, well, not really gore, but if you're going into it for blood and body count, there is plenty here. I mean, it opens up with 54 deaths. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I was not disappointed at all. definitely loved how it handled its themes and everything. So, yeah, 2001's Suicide Club. I still have one more Faces of Death, 4 Mondo Cane films. There's 3 Extreme films I'm waiting on. I don't know when they'll be here. One should be here next week. The other 2 could be longer, but yeah, so I'll do those and then I'll get out of Extreme films and go on to something else. I didn't want this to be a half hour long, but I apologize. So, yeah, Suicide Club 2001. Thank you for watching.